watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 200! Accessing your server via code. Did you hear me? I said episode 200! Booyah! Take that. Okay, so yes, 200. The 200th show of NotesIn9. And they're all on XPages TV, which I'll talk about later. Though actually, like 3 or 4 were kind of like thrown away because they were just so topical or stupid that it just didn't make sense to keep them on. But of my 200 shows, it's 94.2 hours worth of content. Most of it's on XPages, and it's all free. The most important number that I am very happy about is the 41 amazing contributors who've graciously donated their time and talent to come on to this silly little show and share what they've learned to try to help others. And to me, that's just the greatest thing in the world is to work with other people and get them on and just share more content than I could provide you, because a lot of the shows that the contributors have provided I couldn't do myself, and I still couldn't to this day. And I thank them every time I see them, because they've done an amazing job, and I wouldn't have gotten this far without it. But that's a little bit about 200. I really don't want to get into too much into that stuff, at least right now. So what about this 200 and this title that I've got going on here? Well, I had options. I had options for what to do to this show, and my first option was, well, let's reflect on NotesIn9 and honor all the contributors, because certainly they deserve it, and they deserve all the accolades. But I didn't really feel totally comfortable with that, at least from a timing point of view. So then I wanted to do a non-tech show. I wanted to do a barbecue show, quite honestly, and that's still probably going to happen or so. We're going to do some pulled pork in the smoker and put the tech away and do something a little off the beaten path. So that was my main option that I wanted to do. But quite honestly, I just came back from Austin, where there was really good barbecue, and my family's back to school, kind of on this healthy kick, and there just isn't an outlet for me to make barbecue at the moment. So that was a problem. So then I thought, wow, let's discuss the IBM App Dev futures and strategies. There's been a lot of discussion about that lately, and the fallout from MWLUG. A lot of blog posts on there, some positive, some not so positive, and I have some things to say. This show will happen. It just won't happen today. And spoiler, IBM, be afraid. And I did, for the record, send emails to 2 IBMers warning them that the tone might change for that topic. So again, be afraid. But I didn't want to do that on episode 200. I don't want to go out like that. Whenever I kind of like, I don't do opinion shows. I don't like opinion shows. I like just demo shows. I've done a couple opinion shows already, and again, the IBM one will happen. But I always like to go back to my NotesIn9 mission statement. I actually wrote this around episode 6 or 7 or so, and I wrote this to keep my ego out of it. And I've got this great ego story, which maybe I'll share sometime if I'm drinking or so. But the purpose of NotesIn9 has always been not about me. I couldn't care less about anything I've gained from it. I've gained a ton from it, so I guess I do care about it. But again, it's not about the ego. It's about helping others. It's about sharing the content. And back in 2009, when I started this XPages stuff, it was freaking hard because there was no documentation. And there still is an IBM, but we'll save that for another show. So the goal was always just to provide useful content. And that's it. So I didn't want to do anything kind of outside the box to talk about IBM and their crap, or do maybe not even the barbecue idea, because that is that's out there, and even going through the contributors and their contributions and honoring them or so, that it didn't seem right or so. But what did seem right to me, then it kind of came to me today. I got an email from a viewer who's having a problem, and that's what NotesIn9 is about, is helping people. So I get this viewer, and we're going to change the name as Stephanie. Oh, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it is her name. But anyway, so we're going to call her Stephanie. And she's new to XPages. She's new to development overall. And I've emailed her. She's emailed me off and on over the years, and stuff like that. And she emailed me today, quite honestly. And she's using DB lookup. Blah. Spit, as Paul Calhoun would do it. And she wants to get a list of her servers and then a list of applications on the server. And it was a long email, and quite honestly, I didn't understand half of it. I have no idea what she's trying to do. But we're going to talk about ways to try to help her. And a disclaimer, we're going to go into this into some depth here a little bit. I can't do this for everybody, but I try to answer every email I can. And I typically, if I can help you relatively quickly or easily or point you in the right direction, I will do so. If not, then I'll say go to Stack Overflow or go to the XPages Slack chat. And we're going to talk about that XPages Slack chat again in a minute. Um, but what she really wants to do is what's provided in Catalog.nsf. And I actually forgot Catalog.nsf even existed until I was done with the demo portion of this. And how was I reminded that Catalog.nsf even exists? From the aforementioned XPages Slack chat. Okay, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a little late here. So here's a screenshot of me going into this chat, and I say, isn't there an XPages project on OpenNTF that inspects your server or something, gives a list of DBs and stuff, which sounds like what Stephanie wants to do. And then the great Oliver Busse, oh, see, I had it right in the last show. Now it's late. I'm messing it up. Oliver Busse, um, is responding here, and he's telling me that he has an application, but quite honestly, it's too advanced for her. It'll be too advanced for me to pick apart myself. So that's really not going to work. So this is the conversation that we had, and at the end of the conversation, then he brings up Catalog.nsf, which I totally forgot about. And again, so that's probably what she's going to need to use, though that's not been, I didn't touch that in my demo, and I don't plan on it or so. But this is social collaboration, I guess. So we have this XPages Slack chat, which you can join. It's free. There's like 300 people signed up for it. Not many people sign in on a daily basis or so. And you can ask a question. There's no guarantee you're going to get an answer, but you might. Or you might make a friend, or you might meet somebody who's doing something similar to you. We have rooms for beginners. We have rooms for advanced. We have rooms, I think, for the OpenNTF API. We have rooms for random. I posted in there today about this spaceship thing blowing up. So it's a community thing that you can join for free. There's a link. I didn't get the link. It's late here. If you Google XPages Slack chat, you'll get the link. But join it. Come in, say hi. Make a friend. Don't rely on emailing me or emailing this one person meet a lot of people, and come in here and be part of the conversation. I did a great show. My favorite show, my worst show is episode 100, which was called Modernize Yourself. It came from a 50-minute Lotusphere session. I think it was still Lotusphere at the time. Maybe it was Connect at that point or so. And I gave this session about how do you improve yourself as a developer. And we're going to talk about this in the future at some point again. And the problem is the show, when I recorded it, I took this 50-minute session and I liked it so much I milked it. And it became this stupid 120-minute video, which is way too long. But inside that video is a section on how to join the conversation and how to start or get into the blogging and get into these chats. Post information and put comments on there, to blogs. Thank a blogger. Get your name out there. Get recognized. Make a friend, and then you're going to get more help if people actually know your name. That's what happened to me. So as you meet people, they're going to be more apt to help you. There's no reason not to. And in that show, I have all the excuses debunked. So there are no excuses that I cannot debunk, other than your company doesn't allow you to participate in anything. That I haven't quite figured that one out yet. So anyway, okay, enough of that stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give a little demo of code, and I'm not using any formulas. No formulas are harmed in this. I wanted to use server-side JavaScript to make it easier for Stephanie or any other new people, and I couldn't bring myself to do it, quite honestly. It hurt my head trying to think of it that way. So I did use a Java class as a page controller, which I believe I just did in episode 198 or so. I did this show on no dependency page controllers. So I recommend, if this Java scares you or is new to you, I recommend you go to this last 7 shows that I dropped from MWLUG, but especially that no dependency page controller one. And there was also one on converting a document to a Java object. They were not designed to be pure Java primers, But again, code is code. It's all about the syntax end. It's not that hard. If you're using server-side JavaScript or Lotus script, it's going to be very similar. If all you know is add function formulas, well, it's time for you to learn something that's real programming, just for your own future. And stuff like that. So, okay, enough of that rambling. Let's go on with the demo where we talk about um, how to access your servers via code and how to access the applications on at least the root folder. I'm not doing recursion, at least the root folder on your server. Okay, before we get into the meat of the show, just a quick I guess plug. I did update XPages TV recently, so all this really is an easier index for all my shows because I don't know how to do this in WordPress. I'd much rather it be in WordPress, quite honestly, or so. But the problem is with a screencast like this show here, Repeat Controls, is still pretty relevant. Even though it's pretty old. An introduction to searching. Oh God, it's like my old children here. But that's pretty relevant too. So it's hard to find that stuff on WordPress because it's very topical based or so. So that's what this index is for. So again, all the episodes are listed there. A couple didn't make the cut, like 3 or 4 got lost to the annals of time because they were stupid. But you can click on details. You see details of this. You don't really actually need this anymore. That's how I used to have it. But I did add just like this open link. It'll open right to the blog in case I have any comments here, which I usually don't. But in case I have any good comments here, then you can hit play and stuff like that. So that's XPages TV. Okay, so now to the meat of the problem for Stephanie is she wanted to have some way to open up a server list and show all the applications of the server and do stuff with that. And I took a quick stab at it, and this is just that quick stab. So here's all the servers in my directory, and actually these aren't really live. I think the Yoda one is on my laptop right now that I travel with, and stuff like that for presentations and stuff like that. So I can't click on these. It's not going to work out too well probably. But this one is my main server for now, though I'm going to retire that soon. If I click on set here to just set it into memory, it's going to come out and it's going to read all the databases there. I don't believe this is recursive, and I am not doing recursive in any way, shape, or form. I've done that at the day job, and it hurts my head. So I believe this is just the main directory and stuff like that. So that's all it is. Is first we're going to have a list of all the servers from the NAB or Domino directory, and then a way to just get these in a second repeat. And obviously then you would expand on this to add buttons or other fields you wanted for the database and stuff like that. Okay, so how does this server list work? Okay, so here's the XPage server list. I've got 2 repeats coming on here. The first one here is going to that's the thing. I want the repeat control. Here's a repeat control. And I'm using a page controller here, which I've talked about many times. I'm going to keep talking about it. Stephanie originally was using an @db lookup, and quite honestly, I refused to use @db lookup. I wanted to do it in server-side JavaScript because I thought that would be easier for her and other beginners to digest, but quite honestly, I barely remember server-side JavaScript, and it's kind of painful, so I'm not doing it anymore either. So we're going to look at how to do this. So I created this page controller, this panel. So there's this panel on the page. The panel encompasses everything, and this is almost the exact same thing I did in I think it was NotesIn9 198 recently. Just the no dependency page controllers. So inside this panel, and I'll use the pretty pane since we're kind of talking to new people here, is this we've added a data source to this panel. And this data source has 2 things going on. Is inside here is just a little snippet of code where I create a new controller server list object. Okay, that's it. It's just an object. Controller is the package. Server list is the name of is the name of the class. Probably not my best name in the world. And then the name of the variable is controller. So that allows me to reference, oh, not there, did it again. So that allows me to reference it here. So there's a method inside this object that says get server names. Okay, so let's look at that. So here's my class controller serverless. There's no dependencies here. I've got now I say that I am using the OpenNTF API because I don't want to eat pain for breakfast. That makes things easier. And I did extend a little base page controller, which you can talk about, which again is kind of in that video where I talked about doing that, I believe. One of the recent ones. But anyway, here's the meat of it. So I've got this method, public list string. A list is like an array of different strings. Okay, this is Java, but there's not much code going on here. I create a session, and this is an OpenNTF API call. There is plenty of examples on the web if you're just using the Lotus.domino classes. But session equals factory, and because I don't have an ACL in this database, it's open, but my NAB is secured. Then I had to use session as signer. I normally wouldn't do that for this, but I don't want to have to log in and stuff like that. Then I get the current database. Database current database equals session get current database. Then I create another database object for my NAB or Domino directory, and that's session.getDatabase. And you pass in the server name. So this is my current server that I'm working on. A current database.getServer that returns a string. Can I get that back up? String. See? And then I'm just hard coding in names.nsf. I create a view object, and I say database get view servers, and I had to go into designer to get the view name. And then document collection collect equals view get all documents. So now this guy here has all my servers from my server documents in there. I create a brand new list string because that's what I want to pass back to it here. And I say it's a new list is kind of what's called a generic, right? Technically it's called an interface or so. So you can't actually use this, but there's different flavors of lists. There's an array list is the most commonly one. I think there's a linked list. There's different types of lists, but array list is the most common one. So this is basically an array of strings. That's all it is, and it's empty. And now, due to the magic of the OpenNTF Domino API, I can use a for loop. If you're using the Lotus.domino classes, then you'd have to use like a while loop, something like that. Make sure to recycle. And again, there's older examples from that on the web. So in my collection, for each doc in my collection, what am I going to do? I'm going to loop through each of them, and I'm going to say server names, this guy here, add the name. Now, this comes right from the field of the document. There's a field called server name, and I'm going to add that to this array list, and then I'm going to return it, right? Did I close it? No, I didn't. Okay, and what that gives me this business right here. Okay, so now what's this set button do? I'll click it again. Runs for a second. We go back to the X page. We go back to the X page. So set, okay, and then events. So it's going to call set server, which is just a string in my controller class, row data. And what's row data? That comes from my repeat control. And repeat controls are so much better than view panel controls. Repeat controls should be I don't care who you are, should be your default unless you're just really rushed for time. So I've got this collection name as row data, so that's how I identify the current row. Because if you remember, there's 4 rows here or so. Well, XPages figures it out. Row data in here is going to be this. Row data in here is going to be this, and then this, etc. Okay, so that's what XPages gives you. So again, in here, when I click on this, I'm going to say controller set server row data. So let's go back to this controller object. I've got this private variable in here. So this is private inside this controller here. And then underneath it, I've got a getter and a setter. So what that button does is it calls set server, passes in the server name, and then sets this private guy up here to equal whatever gets passed in there. And that's all it does. So now I'm holding this variable. If you're not using page controllers, typically you would have used a view scope or session scope variable to do this. This is better. This is a better way to do it than using view scope and session scope variables. I guess view scope would be more technically accurate in this state. Okay, so that's all that did. Okay, so now, but what it does is it does a full update over here, right? So after it does a full update, now I've got this computed field here. And that's using simple data binding controller server. Well, we're in read-only mode. This is a controller field or so that calls the getter. So public string, return a string called get server, so it returns what we're holding up here. So which is what was passed in there. Okay? So that's how this gets in. And again, what EL does, this is called expression language, is you type it like this, controller.server, and it knows, the beauty of it is, it knows if this is a read-only control, call the getter. Or I guess if you're in the process of reading, call the getter. And if you want to actually update a field, call the setter. That's what it does. So underneath here, I've got another repeat control. And inside here, I have controller get application list controller get server. So there's all server-side JavaScript here. Okay, so it's going to go back to my controller here, and it's going to call get application list, and it's going to pass in whatever value is being held inside it. Okay, it's a beautiful thing. So we pass that in, we create another array list just like we did above it. And I have just a little error thing here. So if for like when the page loads and we don't have values here, it doesn't vomit on me and stuff like that. So it will just pass back this empty array list. Okay, so that's why it's blank to begin with. Okay, then we have this, I get the session again. Now we have this thing called DB directory. And again, I don't do admin-y kind of stuff, so this was kind of new to me. I've never really used that before. But if we come up here, I was just Googling around, and this guy was great. I wonder, I don't even know if he's still in IBM or not, but this Robert Perone has such good documentation on coding stuff. So if you want to get out of using formula language and you want to actually get into coding, which is where you need to be, again, I'm not talking about just to you, Stephanie, I'm talking about to everybody out there, go through this business here and, and look at some of his code examples. Or so. Now, this is all server-side JavaScript, so if you can't handle Java, this would be your roadmap to get started. Okay? Okay, so let's go back to the controller. So we're using this object, which just gives me a list of all the directories. And actually, the ODA, I didn't get the ODA, how it works. They deprecated get first database and get next database. I'm not quite sure how helpful that really is. It took me a little bit to figure out, well, I'll just, that it would work in a for loop, but again, I'm just surprised they did that. But again, they're smarter people than I am. So we're doing the same thing that we did up there is for database, DB, inside this directory. So we're going to loop through all the databases it finds, not recursive. So this is probably just the main folder. And I will not be discussing recursive at any time in the near future because I can barely do it. And when I can get recursive to work, it's after a long phone call with Devin Olson. Okay, that's just how we fly here. Okay, so I've got this array list called file names right here. And I'm adding the file name of the database to the array list. And I'm also just printing it out to the console as I was testing it. And then I return file names. The array list. Oops, not that one. Come back here. And that's it. That's it. So here's a list of, at least in the root directory of all the databases. I could add a button here next to it to do something with it, and if we look at that, I don't think I showed that repeat too well. So I made the collection name here, app data and app index. And here I'm just showing, app data here. Okay, and this is the live database object. It's not based off a document. Okay, but if you do want to work with documents or so, I was told about this wonderfully handy thing called the catalog, which is basically everything Stephanie wanted to do to begin with. And all that. So again, that's a database that I guess is fed from admin P and does whatever it is to do, and you could double click on it and find all sorts of crap like that. Okay? And that's the demo. If you have any questions on me, since I did this show, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for helping me get to episode 200.